Welcome to Suthichai Live English. My guest tonight, Professor Zhang Weiwei, Director of the China Institute, Fudan University in China. He wrote a book on the China Wave, Rise of a Civilizational State. Professor Zhang is a very active scholar, explaining what he calls the Chinese narrative, meaning that he believes that China is on track to become probably the most influential country in the world. He dismisses Western accusations, trying to portray China as a threat. Professor Zhang believes that China is friendly to all countries. China does not put pressure on countries to take sides. And it's interesting that all the main questions from the Western media, Western governments about China, Professor Zhang is ready to rebut, to explain, and to insist that the Chinese model is the kind of model that is suitable for China, and to help the world go on a peaceful and prosperous track. Good evening, Professor.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for giving me the time to have a chat about, I think there's a very interesting topic that the Thai people and people who watch my program in English will be very interested in your viewpoint on where's China heading. First, tell us something about what you do at the Institute, the China Institute at the Fudan University.
Our institute is a leading think tank in China. We focused on the Chinese model of development and the modernization, and the Chinese narrative, especially political narrative. We do a lot of international exchange of visits, and we also do some TV programs. We also were active in the internet. In other words, we want to share our knowledge with the Chinese audience, with the global audience.
And the book that you wrote, that was on the rise of China Wave,
yes,
right?
Yes.
The rise of a civilizational state. The China Wave. How would you describe China Wave?
Essentially, the rise of China causes a kind of momentum, like a wave impacting actually the outside world and the world as a whole, given the size of China. And as I always say, China is a civilizational state, which means amalgam of longest continuous civilization in the world with a super large modern state. Its main feature is super large population, super vast territory, super long traditions, super rich cultures. And all these are also a blend of the old and new, tradition and modern. That makes China's rise very influential.
Well, it's influential, obviously, because we've seen the rise of China in the past few decades, quite dramatic. And a lot of people welcome that. And of course, as you know, as a scholar, some people are suspicious of the rise because you are big and you rise so quickly. And you have influence all over the world at the moment. So when people ask you that question, is China's rise a boon or a threat? I'm sure you get this question all the time.
Yes.
How would you explain it today?
In fact, China has already risen because China became the world's largest economy by purchasing power parity back in 2014. So it's already for exactly 1 decade the largest economy by purchasing power parity. That certainly has tremendous global impact. And some people welcome it. Actually, many people welcome it. If you look at the BRI, Belt and Road Initiative, initiative launched by China, by President Xi Jinping. Now it's already $1 trillion invested and 5,000 projects, over 150 countries participating. Yet, as you said, in certain areas and regions, there were still suspicions about China, especially in the Western media. Sometimes we see very hostile to China. Yet, as I always said, China itself, this kind of rise is inevitable, has roots in its own civilization. It's driven by 1.4 billion people. It's on the whole far more beneficial to the global majority. This is important. Yeah.
As far as the Southeast Asia is concerned,
Yeah.
Thailand in particular,
Yeah.
we have kept a very close relationship with
Yeah.
China. Now, looking at the region,
Yeah.
now let the global impact first.
Yeah.
How would you describe China's rise in terms of its global impact
Okay.
at the moment?
Essentially, when we talk about China, we refer to say New China or People's Republic of China. It was founded in 1949. Since then, over 70 years have passed. And what happened was, on the basis of the first 3 decades of effort, what we call the political, economic, and social foundation, China economy began to take off since the early 1980s. Roughly, with every 1 decade since then, China accomplished 1 industrial revolution. For historical reasons, we missed the first and second industrial revolutions.
Yeah.
Now we catched up and we made 1 revolution after another. So at this particular moment, China is at the fourth frontier of the 4th industrial revolution. And what's more important, China now is the only country capable of providing goods, services, and experiences of all the 4 industrial revolutions. That makes China very different from other countries. And that also makes some countries a bit nervous. In other words, they feel a lot of China has an edge over them in many areas. For instance, it's EV revolution, renewable energies, and other aspects of the AI and 5G, etc. So these are revolutionary, indeed game-changing and transformative. But from our study of the global affairs, global majority, most countries welcome that. Yeah.
That's on the global basis.
Yeah.
What about Southeast Asia, ASEAN?
Yes, indeed. We are very pleased that take Thailand as an example. For exactly 10 years, China is Thailand's largest trading partner. China now is also the largest foreign investor in Thailand. And the same goes with ASEAN as a whole. And ASEAN itself has been China's largest trading partner for 4 years running. And this year, Sino-ASEAN trade will reach $1 trillion. I hope. Yeah, I think it will be achieved. Yeah.
Of course, some conflicts in the South China Sea also affecting relations between China with some of the ASEAN countries.
Yes.
The case in point at the moment is the Philippines.
Yeah.
How do you see China trying to resolve conflicts in South China Sea with, say, the Philippines and partly with perhaps Vietnam and all this?
And the Chinese approach to international affairs, including South China Sea, is very different from the United States. For instance, if you have a historical perspective, when the United States became the world's largest economy in roughly 1890s, the United States began to launch the war against Spain and occupy the Philippines and Cuba.
Yes.
China became the world's largest economy in 2014 and for a decade, but China still prefers negotiated solution to all kinds of disputes, including South China Sea dispute. Because as a civilizational state, China has a much longer vision for global affairs. Sometimes describe the American approach as either with us or against us, either friend or foe. But as far as China is concerned, our philosophy is very different. For us, it's either friend or a potential friend. Yes, the Philippines, from Chinese point of view, has made some trouble and still making some trouble. But we think it can be handled. And in slightly longer term, the Filipino and Chinese friendship will be restored. We are confident about that.
Oh, we are not friends today, but tomorrow.
That's true.
Friends.
Yes,
Right.
yes. Yeah. We have seen too many ups and downs in through China's internal, civilizational evolution. So we have a much longer time span and perceptions of the whatever international affairs.
Right. So what about the code of conduct, the draft of which has been on for many years?
That's true.
It hasn't really been concluded yet. Do you think China and ASEAN could conclude the code of conduct in South China Sea?
Yeah, I think, China is on the whole very much appreciative of ASEAN's principle of its neutrality and independence, its principle of not picking the sides.
Yeah.
We think this is very important. And, in the first place, this whole declaration on the South China Sea itself is indeed a good document by which all the parties are committed not to, say, inhabit the uninhabited islands or reefs, etc., and to exercise maximum constraint and restraint on bilateral and all kinds of relationship in the region. So far, although the declaration is not legally binding document, I think most, if not all, have more or less are committed to this kind of purposes and act a way of behavior. Now, concerning this draft code of conduct, from my knowledge, China and ASEAN are engaged in serious negotiations on that. It's already, at this moment, the third draft. So we hope very much as soon as possible we can have it done, completed. From our knowledge, it's mainly the interference from external force which prevents this from completing. Otherwise, it can be done relatively easily. Yeah.
Of course, the Taiwan issue remains the most sensitive
True.
red line, so
Yes,
to say, for
yeah.
China. Is this an issue with some of the ASEAN countries, the Philippines, for example? The president congratulated the election of the president of Taiwan, and that became an issue. And the United States says it is committed to helping the Philippines. Do you see this as somehow related to the Taiwan issue?
Well, on the whole, the unification of Taiwan with the Chinese mainland is written into the Chinese constitution. And Chinese position has been consistent since day one. So we hope very much for peaceful reunification. But if the red line was crossed, the pro-independence faction in Taipei became more arrogant and even want to risk this kind of adventure, then perhaps some kind of unpeaceful means will be adopted. So this is basically the issue. But I think on the whole, I'm cautiously optimistic because China has enough both hard power and growing soft power for reunification. In other words, we make it very clear whether the United States intervenes or not, whether other countries like Japan helps or not. This process of reunification has already started. As you can see, we have a 5-year plan, including have the high-speed trains reaching Taiwan. That's true.
Straight to Taiwan, huh?
In most cases, Chinese fulfill their 5-year plan ahead of the schedule.
Professor Zhang, one of the most sensitive issues in the region is Taiwan. How do you see the reunification of Taiwan with China? President Xi Jinping has said that China would try its best to do it peacefully, but if need be, force would be used. How do we see that? How do you see that?
Yeah. As I said, indeed, this is a position, in other words, consistent on the part of the Chinese mainland. Peaceful unification of Taiwan with the Chinese mainland. This will be achieved. And if Taiwan goes too far and on the way of so-called Taiwan's independence, and we will stop it, sometimes through hard power. So I think more and more people in Taiwan, including those in Taiwan military, have come to see that. They do not want to make Taiwan another Ukraine. No. And most Taiwanese do want to fight a war with the Chinese mainland. Chinese mainland do not want to fight either, but this is military deterrence is crucial. And we want to make sure that the reunification will be achieved step by step. Yeah, it's on the way. Yeah.
What is the difference between Ukraine and Taiwan on this?
Of course, it's very different. Ukraine is an independent country recognized by United Nations. Taiwan is part of China, recognized by. This fact is recognized by all kinds of international legal documents through the Cairo Declaration in the 1940s up to the UN relevant resolutions. So no doubt about this. Yeah.
And Taiwan has always been part of China, so it's totally different from Ukraine. Is that right?
No, if you look at the so-called the constitution of the of Taiwan, or so-called the Republic of Taiwan's constitution, Taiwan is part of China. The official name of Taiwan is still Republic of China.
Yeah.
No doubt about this.
So, how long would it take in your calculation?
We hope, most Chinese hope, it will be achieved as soon as possible. It will take some time. Indeed, I'll give you another, it's not an anecdote, it's a fact, because we have a plan for this high-speed train to reach Taiwan. And work is going on the way, whatever, feasibility studies, and even money have been channeled to do this project. Everything is on the pipeline.
Wow.
So we think, given the Chinese record of fulfilling and 5-year plan ahead of schedule, I think it will be faster than perhaps many people expected.
Professor Zhang, President Xi Jinping has told American President Joe Biden that this world is big enough for the two of us, so we don't need to fight. What does it actually mean? You should share this world, a power sharing scheme. How do you see it? How do you, interpret that?
There is a clear difference between the U.S. Philosophy and Chinese philosophy. And U.S. philosophy is more or less a zero-sum game, a kind of evolution from the Thucydides trap. And the Chinese philosophy, given China's own civilizational experience, is always inclusive and win-win.
Yes.
So I said, if China and United States have to be locked into a kind of Cold War, well, very stupid. Because the Cold War is based on the idea of mutually assured destruction, what's called MAD, MAD.
MAD,
yeah. But the Chinese philosophy is what we call the mutually assured prosperity, MAP. I think MAP is so much better than MAD, not only for China and United States, but also for the world at large. I think the United States will eventually realize that through all kinds of, experience, etc. Eventually, it will come to that. We have to try to enlighten a bit, share American with a bit Chinese and Asian wisdom.
Yes. So this is that why you call this China as an institutional state, a civilizational state?
Because indeed that's the true case, and it's a factual statement. If you say how to describe United States, the Americans will say, we are a democracy, we are a market economy.
Yes.
And you ask, how do you describe China? I will say China is a civilizational state, and China is a mixed economy. So that's a very simple way to tell China. But behind this is something very serious, because the civilizational state, again, I compare China and United States. United States, we all know, has a deep state. We have caused so much trouble for the world at large and for United States as well itself. But China does not have a deep state. We have a deep culture and deep people. Deep culture means for many things, we have thousands of years of traditions, how we do it, how we deal with other countries, our neighbors and other powers. In people as well. For instance, in the case of Chinese culture, we honor our promise and commitments very seriously, And but United States, it's a part of free speech. I was joking the other day. China put forward this Belt and Road Initiative.
Yes.
Then we make investment, thousands of projects going on. I saw United States has its own version of BRI.
Yes.
In the American media. I calculate 3 already. I said, my goodness, it's a part of freedom of speech. They have no way to complete them, because the BRI is largely based on capability to, in the first place, to build a good infrastructure, digital infrastructure, other infrastructure. I was wondering whether, given the U.S. political system and deadlock in everything, can the United States fix its New York underground railway within 5 years? Not to mention global BRI U.S. version. It's inconceivable. So it's not being serious.
So you think very soon China will overtake America in all aspects?
Well, in fact, our philosophy is win-win. Over the past 2,000 years, China was a larger economy than the United States in at least 1,800 years. The United States became the largest economy, or larger than China, had a history of, say, less than 200 years. So if you look this whole longer history in perspective, this U.S. lead is anomaly. Chinese lead is far more normal in international affairs. So in the case of China, and my ASEAN friends know this very well. China is an old civilization, and Zheng He came to Southeast Asia. China Navy, I don't know, 100 times mighty and stronger than European navies. But we did not colonize this land. We have trade with Southeastern countries. So these are very different traditions.
Well, the Western governments call BRI a Chinese project to put countries into the debt trap. You must have heard this word. That China is, lending money and, of course, trying to influence those countries. And they are all in debt, in China's debt. So they think that this is what countries in the region around the world should be very careful. China has this trap that is trying to make sure you are under their control. How do you respond to that?
No, this is a very condescending view. and perception of BRI participants. I've been to many BRI countries,
Yes.
and they also feel that's very condescending, as if they have no wisdom to decide, projects they want to join in, as if they are mentally retarded, they cannot do right decision. That's stupid, because the very principle of the BRI, crucial, most important principle is discussing together, together, and benefiting together. So a country, a company joins BRI out of its own interests rather than forced by China. China does not force anyone to join BRI.
No. It's all voluntary and
It's voluntary, yes.
yes. And BRI, as far as you're concerned, has been quite successful. And what is the future from now on for BRI?
Well, I think BRI now is the largest platform for international trade and economic cooperation, the largest public good in the world today. It's much larger than the old so-called Marshall Plan in terms of the scale of investment. I said the other day I was in France. I talked to my French friends. I said, one major problem in Europe today is illegal refugees from Africa. One major reason was Africa was underdeveloped. So why not, China is helping Africa to develop itself through infrastructure, airports, harbors, and etc. And Europe should join BRI and then help to Africa to develop. In the end, that will handle this refugee crisis in a fundamental way. Yes. Otherwise, given the fast pace of population growth, etc., and if the continent remains in poor poverty, then this issue cannot be resolved. So we should all promote peace and development.
Well, you have said some time ago that we need to build a Chinese narrative. The Chinese narrative. What is the Chinese narrative you are proposing?
Yeah, for instance, in this world today, we have to admit the Western political narrative, more or less predominant, especially in the mainstream medias. Yes. So their paradigm is what's called the democracy or autocracy, democracy or authoritarianism.
Yes.
As a result, China is portrayed in a very negative light. In the end, this is not good both for China and for the Western countries themselves.
Yes.
Many Westerns came to China, find that China totally different from what they have read and they have heard. So we see, for instance, rather than sticking to this old-fashioned Cold War hinged this kind of democracy versus autocracy paradigm, we should embrace a new paradigm, which is called good governance versus bad governance. More objective and political narrative, which can really measure all countries in the world in the more accurate, objective, and reasonable terms.
In the past 2 decades, you have advocated the Chinese people should be more confident in discussing and studying the institutional comparison with the West. You have this talk show. You have hosted a talk show also.
Weekly.
Chinese Be Confident. That is the name of your talk show.
For the China Now.
Really? Wow.
Yeah,
So what do you tell your audience in this talk show? Chinese Be Confident.
In fact, this is the most influential, arguably most influential current affairs TV program in China. And it's very well received. We have 100 millions of viewers.
Wow.
And very well received on the whole. And not only TV show itself, but also through the internet, through social media, it reached a large audience.
Yes.
Also in Southeast Asia, outside China. We
Yes.
try to give a Chinese interpretation of international affairs.
Yes. Mhm.
Whatever has happened, we have a Chinese comment on that.
Oh.
So I'm a key commentator, but also other scholars, entrepreneurs who, etc. They join the program.
Yes.
We have done this for 5 years.
Mhm.
And last week, the first time our show went to Malaysia,
Wow.
and we did 2 pieces in Malaysia. It's also well received.
Wow. It's in Chinese language.
It's in Chinese language.
Ah.
In Malaysia, they have a large Chinese, ethnic Chinese community who speak perfect Chinese.
Wow.
We have a lot of viewers and fans in Malaysia.
Wow.
Fascinating, yeah.
Wow. So you are promoting the Chinese model, right? And how do you describe the Chinese model? And do you think other countries should adopt the Chinese model?
The Chinese model is a kind of, I would say, objective description of what China has done and how it has done. Because China's success is extraordinary. Within a few decades, China has moved to the first frontier of the fourth industrial revolution, and no extreme poverty, zero extreme poverty in China today. So this is China created world's largest middle class.
Yes.
400 million people. And there are two middle class. When they go to Europe, go to the United States, they're also middle class.
Yes.
So this is a game changer and transformative. So I have to explain why China can succeed in that. I can cut the long story short.
Yes.
Explain in a few words on the China model.
Yes.
Politically, if the Western model is about elections, one person, one vote. Chinese model is about selection plus election. Election first. Why we call China civilizational state? Because Chinese invented civil servant examination system based on meritocracy, the courtship system, and you can even trace back to the Han Dynasty. So it has over 1,000, 2,000 years of history.
Yes.
So selection is extremely important. If you look at the composition of top leadership in China, say the top 7 standing committee members of political bureau, virtually most of them have experience of number 1 of a Chinese province. For 3 provinces, at least 2 provinces have governed over 100 million people before they came to current position, and then plus election. So in other words, arguably the Chinese leadership at this moment is the most competent in the world. Yeah. Given their experience and the way they came to this position. In the economic domain, economically, it's a mixed economy, which means the state plays its role, the market plays its role, and they complement each other. We have state sector and private sector, very dynamic private sector, and the 2 sectors also complement each other. For instance, why China leads in internet usage, in AI revolution, in the EV revolution, in the renewable revolution. All this is a result of 5-year plans. For this EV cars, result of 4 5-year plans. And so it's a result of 2 decades of consistent, unified efforts. Of course, each 5-year plan involves certain readjustments. And then the state is responsible for infrastructure, including digital infrastructure. In the case of China, today, whether 4G stations or 5G stations, China represents roughly 70% of global total.
Right.
20 times larger than United States. So this kind of digital infrastructure paved way for e-commerce, e-payment, with 一部手机, one smartphone, you can do everything. Yeah. And it also paved the way for electric cars because all the highways are internet connected. This is totally different. So when the state sector responsible for infrastructure, which means the private sector usually do not want to invest in this infrastructure because it cannot recover the investment. The state sector does that. And the private sector has made the best use of the availability of first-rate infrastructure, highways, high-speed trains, digital 5G stations, etc. And socially, it's state and society are engaged in positive interactions, which means the Chinese state is much more and faster in their response to the demands from society.
Right.
Chinese state is the most active user of opinion surveys of all kinds, even if you compare Chinese political system with other political systems. So this is a political domain, economic domain, social domain. The key aspects of China model is different from Western model.
The Western countries will say that the Chinese system lacks the opportunity for people to express their opinion, freedom of speech.
If you are familiar, look at bit the Chinese social media.
Yes.
Not only freedom of expression, it's also freedom of associations. Well, WeChat revolution, you can easily organize big groups, with tens of thousands participating and debating different issues. So dynamic, It's just, What happened is we are wondering why United States so much afraid of TikTok.
Yes, I was going to ask you about TikTok. How do you see the Chinese government now reacting to the TikTok issue back in Congress in America?
In the first place, I think many American TikTok users feel their freedom of expression curtailed.
Right.
Yes.
They're complaining. They're protesting.
It's a very, how to say, it makes this freedom of speech laughable in the United States. They can ban Donald Trump. They can ban TikTok. Despite Donald Trump has how many viewers, fans, 70 million something. Yet, So, in other words, we have to look at China as China it is.
Yes.
And this is important. I told the Western journalists, I said, you just tell your home readers a simple truth. That is how most Chinese feel about their country. Most Chinese in their country is on the right track. Very important. We also have opinion survey done by reputable international institutions.
Yes.
Chinese are among the most optimistic about their country.
What is your advice for Thailand in handling the geopolitical tension between the two giants, China and the United States? How, as a small country, as a good friend of China, also as a good friend of America, how should we handle this tension between the big countries, the two superpowers?
In the case of China,
yes,
as I've indicated already, Chinese philosophy is very different from the American philosophy.
Yes.
For the Americans, Thailand should be either with us or Thailand is against us.
Right.
For China, Thailand can be a good friend of the United States.
Yes.
We never intervene in the internal affairs of Thailand.
Yes.
Or foreign policy of Thailand.
Yes.
Our only request is please do not cut into China's core interests like Taiwan, etc. So otherwise, you can be both great friend of the United States and great friend of China, which is the case today. Thailand did not pick sides and be friendly with all the major powers.
Yes.
It's also the position of the ASEAN as a whole.
Yes.
I think this is the right position, and China has a problem with that.
That's great. And what is your purpose of the visit to Thailand this time?
And well, we received so many invitations from universities, from companies, from personal friends,
Yes.
and so we say, why not? Let's make a trip, give a few lectures, discussions with political, intellectual elites in Thailand, share a bit of the facts about China and Sino-Thai relations,
Great.
and enjoy Thai food.
Great. Yeah, yeah, yeah. This is not your first time to Thailand, though.
In fact, this is, I don't know, maybe
Yeah, quite
eight or
often.
9 times, many, many times, but
Uh-huh.
usually very short.
Mm,
Actually, my first visit abroad,
yes.
beginning of my over 100 country tour,
Oh,
the
yes.
first country I visited was Thailand,
Really? When was that?
Bangkok, working for SCAP for
Oh,
1 week in the year 1982,
1982.
yeah,
Wow.
over 2 decades ago.
Oh, wow.
Beautiful day, a lot of good memory. Yeah.
Wow. And what was your position then as a
Yeah,
representative?
I was a graduate student
Oh,
studying simultaneous interpretation. So
ah,
I was kept to work as an interpreter.
that was great. That was a great opportunity.
Uh,
And yes,
First time I saw a supermarket. The first time I saw highway.
oh,
That time Bangkok was ahead of Shanghai.
oh, yes, yes.
Of course, Shanghai is in the end doing faster,
Oh, yeah, oh, yes.
slightly better.
Much, much better. Much, much better now. And you said you have been to 100 countries now?
That's true. I've been to 108 countries now. Yeah.
108.
Experience.
Why have you been traveling so much?
No, somehow, I made this kind of personal life objective to
Yeah.
travel to 100 countries. As you know, Chinese love something with 100, 100, 100.
Yes, yes, yes. Uh-huh.
And I try to, because as a student, a scholar of political science,
Right.
I try to have an overall grasp of the Chinese model, the
Yes,
Western model,
yes.
and other models of development and modernization. I
Yes.
think, as the Chinese saying goes, 百闻不如一见. To see once is more than, to
Oh,
read.
yeah.
Yeah.
Right, right, right. Very interesting. In fact, I enjoy this conversation because, I rarely get Chinese scholar to come out so, confidently and clearly about where you stand. So thank you for this explanation of, where China stands and how you react to the international activities that, are getting more confusing, more violent. The war in Ukraine, the war in Gaza, in Myanmar, So it's very good to hear from you about where China stands and all this issue. Is it
Thank you.
yeah? Is it
Thank you very much for this interview, and I enjoyed every minute of it, and I have also learned a lot from you. Very good, great.
thank you.
Thank
So
you.
I hope to be able to keep in touch with you so
Great.
that
Stay in touch.
when
Yeah.
there are issues that I would like your opinion on, I can get in touch with you wherever you are. You were traveling all the time. Thank you very much, Professor Zhang. Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Good pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you. See you
Okay.
soon.
Thank
Talk to
you.
you soon.
See you
Bye
soon.
bye.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye.